me up. Good morning, Vietnam. I am Mayer
I was waiting
Dallal,
on it.
your host of the Money Matrix podcast, where smart money finds a smarter way.
Alan Hastings here. Happy, excited California.
Jason Rod checking in from Arizona.
Wow, the happy, excited California. Wow, we got
Upping my energy.
Alan. A question for you: how hot is it in California? Right?
It's overcast today. It's gray and it's in the low 70s.
You're wearing a corduroy or like a thermal sweatshirt?
Oh, it's quarter. All right. You know
Oh
me.
wow, are you wearing corduroy
Yep.
jeans also?
Everything's quarter all the way down.
Wow, that's awesome.
With his Doc Martens.
Yeah. So today we're going to take that little bit of that open round table approach where we're going to throw out some topics and just go back and forth, give our opinions, see how that flows and where it goes with this. We got a couple of things that we want to talk about. We're going to talk about President Trump and Harvard and what's going on. Also, we found out Mr. Trump is getting involved with the Redskins or the Commanders on what's going on with them. Lastly, we'll deal with the Epstein file. Does that sound like a plan?
Let's jump in.
So let's go into the whole Harvard administration breakdown.
Billion.
So let's lay the foundation. What's going on here?
In my opinion, the administration is fighting Harvard and holding them accountable for the letter of the law, which is anti-Semitism is not allowed. And if you participate in anti-Semitism, you 100% do not get to collect $200 when you pass go on the Monopoly table.
So
Simply,
the government froze $2.4 billion of federal funding to Harvard, affecting over 950 active research projects. And Harvard is suing the government, saying that this violates the First Amendment and the Civil Rights Act. A federal judge heard arraignment on July 21st. They're waiting to see what's going on, but President Trump has already started attacking her on social media. The question is, can a president reach that far? I think anti-Semitism does not belong anywhere, especially being Jewish, but how do you visibly quantify what they're doing and what they're not doing? And how do you place guardrails around that and say, okay, if this, then that, we'll give you the money, but this. So that's really what's come down to now is how can you prove they're not doing anything or they are doing?
I think one of the biggest things is that anti-Semitism doesn't belong anywhere. Hate speech should not be something that we see anywhere, let alone in a very sensitive place like where you go to get an education, especially schools that have a lot of foreign students, a lot of diversity. We shouldn't see any kind of hatred.
It's also Harvard eliminate all the DEI programs
Yeah.
and implement merit-based hiring and admission.
So that's where I was going, is at what point is the government stepping into overreaching? The government has no right to interfere with education, period. How would you feel, for instance, if Joe Biden came down to Florida 2 years ago and said, actually, the school needs to teach this way, or that's it? The government doesn't have that right. The funding that they're
who
cutting,
does?
nobody has
But
it.
it's government funding.
But the government funds is not for anything related to what they're saying. It's cancer research funds. It's funds for development. It's funds
If
for
the government says their priorities have changed and they don't feel these are pertinent things to fund.
So if that's the case, why are they laying claim that if you do what I say, you can have the money back?
They're not saying it that way. They're just saying this is what our expectation is. For example, Columbia University, where they were going through the same battle, decided not to sue and came to the table saying, okay, we're willing to accept what you want so we can continue to getting funded. So the government's stance is they have executive order gives them the power to cut funding.
Which it does.
This is what they feel is the letter of the law.
So first thing, the government can't do that. The president has no right to that. Congress and the Senate.
Correct. Even in the
Correct.
contract that they
That's-
signed, the fine
absolutely.
print, you're 100% sure that's not something that's happening.
I am.
They're not
because I've
breaking any
actually
rules
listened-
that they can rescind it.
Correct. I've listened to 3-4 hour long podcasts with actual lawyers about this. Congress is the purse. The government votes on how they spend money, and Congress is the level where that money gets distributed. The president has no reach into how funds are used in any form of the government, period. He doesn't have that, and using an executive order to go around it, specifically unconstitutional. There's actually a line in the Constitution, I forget which amendment it is, where funds are not meant to be weaponized by the government. You can't say, I will not give you funding unless ABC as the government, period. Once funds have been distributed, no strings you can pull to take that back. They have to be revoted
So-
on, and it's not the president who gets to do
But do
it.
you think that he's making a stand as something that might be overturned in court to show that the government is now holding people accountable for questionable acts that are in support of things that are not just the First Amendment, right? You can say certain things, but you can't say you want to kill somebody or whatever else.
Agreed.
And you'll fire in a crowded place, things of that nature. Do you think that in his tactics, he comes in really hard and then, like, say, Colombia, where he pushed hard? Is that what you're calling weaponization in his
Yes.
negotiation tactic?
And I think another big thing is, do you think if roles reversed, it's 2 years ago, Biden's president, how would
Ooh.
you feel? How would you feel if Biden went after a college in Florida, the University of Miami,
Former sitting president.
anybody said, you're going to have to follow exactly what I say. You have to teach gender studies, DEI. You have to do this, you have to do that, or the government stops your funding. How would you feel then if the shoe was on the other foot?
The government passed that there is no transgender recognition. There's only a male and a female. So the government has already passed these laws. So it's not like he's recreating something that's not there. So basically, he's doubling down on what was already. So in your case, it's not an exact match because you're saying, what happens if Biden would come and do this? In this case, the law is already passed. So now, according to what Trump feels and the government feels, is they're not abiding by the law.
What
And the
law
contract.
are they breaking in Harvard?
The whole DEI and the way they're hiring and the admission process goes, it's not equally fair. It's heavily using the woke type of mentality. And the truth is, he just wants a normal situation.
The guy's just trying to be
And
normal.
realistically speaking, if you look at what's happening, they'll appeal. If the judge overturns it, they'll appeal, but it'll get caught up for so long to a point where either Harvard has to self-fund, which they have the endowment and the money to do, or they break ultimately. I don't think that this is going to go any other way because get kicked down the road. That's my opinion. I would be shocked if something happens immediately in these situations just because of the track record, the way things have happened in the past. I think it's going to be subjugating them to coming back to the norm. Do I think problematic? I don't know if it would be problematic, but I think it's the right thing to do to create a fair system that's based on merit-based hirings, merit-based admissions, not because you're of a certain kind or a certain this or a certain that. I'll give you an example. We applied for a government program because my wife is an owner of the company, so it's a minority woman-based, and we're Middle Eastern. I thought I was a minority. When we applied, the woman that represented the government program said, you are not a minority. You're actually very much ahead of everybody else because you're Jewish and Middle Eastern means you have money. I said, what?
Well,
You're really saying that? She's like, that's how we classify it. So I said, what's a minority? Black, Mexican, those are the minorities. That's what she said to me.
well,
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. But we could have qualified on paper. We qualified, but because we didn't click those check marks, we didn't get the grants that were available. And I think
Yeah.
what's happening now is saying, hey, listen, just wanted to be fair. If they were protesting against blacks or Hispanics or gays or whatever, it would be the same as the Jews. But no one is saying anything because it's the Jews. If it was any other race, I'm sure things would be very different.
I think it's super important to look at what actually happened at the actions on everyone's side. Intentions and actions are totally different. I intend to do well every day, but sometimes my actions might end up being something bad. So what they're doing with the anti-Semitism and allowing it to happen on their campus and standing by with their DEI policies and not willing to listen and hiding behind the First Amendment, not understanding that everyone in America has a privilege to be here. It's not your right. I think I bring it back to basics, right? The root cause, what happened, what brought us there. And when I look back at the videos from every news channel out there, and I just think this is crazy that there's Jewish students trying to get into a public space where they're paying $100,000 for an education, and they're being stopped by people. The school's not making room for them or allowing it to happen. It's just ridiculous. I think it's beyond ridiculous. And I think they're crying because they feel like they run the country. They don't run the country. There's laws. We're a law-abiding society. There's contracts that are written. There's things that you're held accountable for. Guess what? This is what someone who takes action looks like. They're not talking about it. They're not saying, oh, I wish, or the other president did this, but now we're in a space where it's this guy's coming in action. He's coming in swinging. I'm telling you, Democrats, put your hands because they're coming at you.
It's funny. Right after the court they went to on the 21st, Trump tweeted on Truth Social, the Harvard case was just tried in Massachusetts before an Obama-appointed judge is a total disaster. I say, which I say even before hearing her ruling. How did this Trump-hating judge get these cases? When she rules against us, we'll immediately appeal and win.
Very interesting.
So-
But
I think he plays the victim too much.
I think, Jason, you make great points, right? If students don't feel safe and anti-Semitism is legitimately happening, it needs to be stopped. You can't have this discussion without admitting that Harvard has to do something differently, but you can't find that Trump's way is correct because it's opposite Harvard. Both are in the wrong, in my opinion.
Back to the negotiation piece of why he comes in so hard, asking for so much. And he doesn't run Harvard. He doesn't have the right to run Harvard and how they do business. But if you want the government money, which is your money, Meyer's money, my money, everybody's money, you got to adhere to federal law and what your contract states. When we do home loans, they sign a bunch of paperwork. You break it. It's contractual, right?
Breaking a contracts.
They're breaking contracts by not holding accountability for these.
It has nothing to do with the funds. The funds
100%. You're allowing this to happen, and we don't want to be associated with it.
That's the one thing I disagree with you on, Alan. If you allow one thing to happen in your institution and it becomes selective, then where does it stop? They can just say, okay, you know what? We're going to allow you on Monday, you can beat the shit out of someone and everything will be okay. On Tuesday, you have to be nice. So at that point, there's no rules, because if you allow one thing to happen and you let that slide, then where else is there? So there's got to be an etiquette, if you will, that maintains a certain standard. Trump in June tweeted out or put on Truth Social that we're getting close to a Harvard and we're negotiating what we're going to do. Unfortunately, it fell apart for Trump. He wanted to have specific milestones on what they're going to be doing and how it's going to be quantifiable. Harvard's argument is, how do you know we're not doing it? And Trump's argument is, well, what are you doing? How is a judge going to ultimately decipher? If it was lost by either party, I think it's going to be appealed and continue to keep going. The broader impact is other institutions are looking at this and saying, I better think of a different strategy if I want government money. The Trump Association said when they're negotiating with Columbia, it's on the cusp of a settlement. Columbia officials were at the White House suggesting that the university would rather make a deal than fight, because originally they said they would go to court. So I think that's really going to be interesting. For Trump, it's going to be a major success in the fact that they're now going to be able to dictate to these large organizations of who they can be and what they can and cannot represent for the United States. I think it's okay to be able to say, hey, we expect decorum, we expect to do the right thing, we expect people to feel safe, just merit-based admissions, based hiring. That's all normal. I don't think they're asking for anything out of them.
I think of an application, right? Application. There's going to be all the information with your job experience, whatever else, your life experience, no name, no sex. Pick the best person, right? That's how I look at it. I don't think it matters if you're a man or a woman. I don't think it matters what color you are. And I think if you're doing that, it's giving leverage to something that doesn't really have merit to what they're being accepted for.
To make college application where it's not a name, they'll know by the code. The people reviewing it won't know the name, won't know the sex. They'll just know the story and the essay.
That would honestly be interesting, but I think we should jump to the next topic because we could go in circles about this forever. I vehemently disagree with allowing the government to dictate colleges and what they do.
And you're like a CNN host where you like to say your last word on it and then move to the next subject.
I just disagree. I'm not going into it. You can say one more thing. I just don't want to stay on this for
I think you're
45
wrong.
minutes.
Go on.
So now this is interesting, Al. President Trump says to the Washington Commanders, who were formerly the Redskins, go back to the Redskins, eliminate this whole woke thing where it's against the Indians because they felt bad that you were called a Redskin, and told the Cleveland Indians, who are now the Guardians, the same thing. And I won't stop your bid on the expansion to build a stadium, because the Commanders were put in a bid for the city of Washington, D.C., so they can build a new stadium or not build, or just remodel RFK. I think, is it a remodel, Jay, or is it a complete rebuild of RFK?
I believe it's complete remodel, but I cannot confirm that.
But Trump saying, hey, it's ridiculous. The Indians love the fact that you call them Redskins. I don't even know why this is a situation. I personally think the Indians and the Redskins are cooler names than the Guardians and the Commanders.
Yeah.
I'll let Alan go on this one.
I'm curious to see what Alan has to say.
I can get my popcorn.
I think this is just a distraction. I don't think he cares. That's what
I think it's a passion project. Part of his DEI white community, what he's trying to do is to take DEI out of everything. And this is part of him renaming military bases and renaming, putting up statues that were there. There's different levels of patriotism, right? And in patriotism, you're proud of your country and your history. I think this is basically a power grab for him doing it to change their name. What does the president care about the name of a football team?
He doesn't like the fact that they forced them to change it in the first.
I
think he's
That's-
that invested.
That's
Co-
what I think. That's what he's upset about. Is
It's
look,
the principle.
Redskins and the Indians have been staples for years. Growing up, it was Redskins, Indians. That's all you knew. When they changed it, it was the
Cowboys and
closest thing.
Redskins game. Yeah.
But yeah, Cowboys and Redskins. The interesting thing is the government owns the land. So that's why it's even
That's why he's
relevant here,
pushing.
because he's got the ultimate veto power.
Yeah.
But the Redskins changed to the Commanders in 2022, and the Indians changed to the Guardians in 2021. And he was pissed.
Where I'm from in Hawaii, there's a large indigenous community. When we talked on our Maui podcast, I talked about, hey, Jay, you're Hawaiian. And I said, no, I'm Kamaina, I'm local, this and that. Words matter in this space. To be respectable to the people who are indigenous that are be calling Redskins, if they feel it's a slur and it's been something going on for 30 years and they finally did it with the momentum, I stand with respecting the people that aren't being called in their eyes a bad name. Although it's to us, it's neutral and we don't look at it as something, it takes me back to intentions and action. So although our intention isn't bad, the action of being called a Redskin fan or an Indian fan, just because it's became socially normal does not mean it's right. I'm okay with football teams want to call themselves like Hawaii had rainbows. Come on, we're the worst. I don't know. Like I'm down for them. They want to change their name. I think it's a power grab. He's pushing the DEI thing forward.
Our country's different now than it was 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense, Al.
It seems common sense to me that we don't use slurs. If a group of people are legitimately affected by this and they really care, then yeah, this is dumb. But I truly don't believe that this is a serious thing. I don't think he cares. I think it's either just an easy win for his supporters or he's trying to distract from something else going on. That's in my opinion.
Simply put, Mayer, I think it's not a they-them scenario. If it was an Asian team and they were using an Asian slur, the yellowbacks, like, come on. You
Yeah,
can't.
let's do that.
And let's just see
It-
what happens. Who knows?
I'm just saying it out loud. Don't
I'm
hate
going
me.
to clip that.
This is the most interesting topic, though. I think the Epstein files, and we're not going to get into who he was and what he did, because I think everyone knows that already. But why all of a sudden is this front and center of every single newspaper article talking Epstein files and transparency? He came out and said, why aren't they releasing all the documents? The minute I get in, I'm going to release everything. And now he's not. What's going on? What's the question?
The attorney general is separate from the president. So honest and politician don't go in the same sentence. We should all understand that. When he says he's going to release everything, he doesn't have the power to say that. The attorney general does. And it comes down to a fact of law. What is the list? What is
When has
this
that ever
list that
stopped him?
everyone's getting into? What does it show? Who he did business with? His flight records? We're an opinion-based society when it comes to news. People get to go on with their opinions and talk shit on anyone and call it a fact and then go, oh, it was hearsay. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with it.
I think it's been a point of discussion because of him. And this is the craziest part to me. During his actual campaign, he brought it up. He's the one who said, I'll release the Epstein files. I'll release the JFK files. He said, we'll be the most transparent administration there ever was. There was Kash Patel on podcasts. There was JD Vance on podcasts. Who's the guy under Kash Patel at the FBI? The bald guy. Yeah, his own podcast. We're going to get in there and we're going to release it. They can't hide it anymore. And the second they get in, first of all, it dropped off the radar for a couple months. But now that it's been brought back up, Pam Bondi's, I got the list. I'm reviewing it right now. They went into press conferences like, we're finally blowing the lid off of this whole thing. And then out of nowhere, they're the ones who say that they can't do it. And I don't care about the logistics.
But
Why
they
set yourself
know Trump's been on the jet 8 times. 8 times between 93 and 97, and his contact information appeared 14 times in Epstein's address book.
So why did he
There's a
set himself
Mar-a-Lago
up for
and
this?
everything. So
But what does that have to do with the price of eggs that he's did business with them? They're in real estate. He was taking care of high net worth clients. You got to line up the ducks, right? To me, it's like, so what? But at the same time, was he going to the island and taking a week vacation? And there's pictures of him with the girls and whatever. I think it's a big Trump gotcha thing. And the Democrats are just salivating on it. I think the Trump administration should just release everything, but there's going to be a whirlwind of what ifs and opinion-based news on it, and it's going to hurt him politically, which is his ego.
Reading something says the backlash of who's on that list political wise, like Jason, like what you just said, is the problem. And I think after the primaries, a lot of things are going to change. Assuming everything goes well for the Republicans in the primaries, things will happen. I think if it comes out now, there'll be too much backlash, and who knows whose names are in there, and it might muddy the waters. I think he wants to get through tariff stuff and then go back to it, say, listen, I was being transparent. We just had to make sure everything is there. Ultimately waiting for that to happen. And that's what I think it's going to eventually come out, though, because everyone knows he was affiliated and he can't get reelected. So ultimately he's got nothing to lose at that
business that he would still lose because he's not going to just retire. I think he's still got to be a figure somewhere. But a big thing is
he's got a couple $100 million in 5 different meme coins. So
maybe some crypto.
This is the crypto law.
Once they take Trump coin at CVS, it's over. The Democrats had the list. They didn't release it. Clearly, everybody's on this list. This list is not just a one side thing.
Correct.
So why would he going into this be like, I'm going to do it, knowing that he's on it, knowing what he knows? He set himself up. Why would he do that? I don't understand the whole thing. What am I missing?
I think anything he does, it's a negotiation and a leverage tactic. How much can you hold over this person and that person? Everything is the art of the deal. I think anything that Trump does and is involved with. Today, he had the president of the Philippines on, and they were talking about all sorts of things. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Powell, he's a moron. He should have lowered.
Oh, I saw that.
He should have lowered interest rates. No one can afford to buy a home. It's ridiculous what's going on here. And the president of the Philippines is sitting there
like, what's going on?
No idea why he's saying this. It was so out of left field. I don't even understand.
He says about his mind.
He's all over the place. He's all over the place.
We lost you on the camera, Jay. Does that mean it's time to let loose over here and move on?
I got to do my Zoom thing.
Well, I fixed it. I think that,
we had a good little chat today. I appreciate everyone's time. God bless. If you enjoyed this, please let us know. If you want us to talk about certain things, please let us know. Again, Money Matrix Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Go and Bank. Thank you so much. God bless.
All right. Take care.
me up.